Oh, it's infused me with some kind of energy or something. So this is going to be a big one. Oh, you're very welcome. We've already got people saying thanks. That's great. Okay, let's see. We're going to get going here in just a minute. Get everybody in. This is exciting to have this many people. I know this time of year is insanely busy. So, it's nice. Maybe that's a good time to have an ethics one, because you'll come because of that. And but we are so glad that you are all here. I'm going to change my view and let's get started. Oh, gosh. Yes, it is 10 o'clock. Let's get started. I'm sure we'll have people joining, but we're going to get started with some announcements and leave Jess with as much time as we possibly can for her training. So welcome to our clinical track training today. We're so excited that you're here, and hopefully this will be something that will be not just instructional, but inspirational, and that's why we do this. We want to learn more and more. And with this one being an ethics one, that's great because it gives us the credit, but we're also learning more. That's just so important in our field. And so yeah, we're excited about that. Sorry, I'm distracted today. I am so sorry. Our code word for today, because everybody wants the code word, right? The code word for today is renew. RENEW, renew. So write that down so you know. I will put that in the chat as we get going, but you will want to email that to Gabby. Raise your hand, Gabby. And she will, if you lose connection, renew or send that word renew to her and she'll get you back in. One thing we really want to emphasize is that when you look in the chat and you see whatever your name is, if it's a phone number or if it says iPad or if it says iPhone, she's not going to know who you are when you email her. You got to either change it and put your name in there, or you need to let her know what that name is so she can find you, and knows if that makes sense, so that she can see who's trying to get back in and make sure that she's connecting with the right person. So just to let you know, if you don't know how to do that, all you have to do is go to your screen and there are 3 little dots up the right-hand corner. And when you click on that, you go down and it will say rename. And then it will allow you to put your own name in or whatever you want to put in there. So please make sure you understand that. Oh, somebody said they didn't hear it. The word is renew. Okay. And I will put that in the chat. All right. And the other thing I wanted to say is because this is an ethics one, we will be having a larger group. And so at the end, when we're all trying to do our evaluations, just please know that if everybody's doing it at the same time, it's going to be blocked up a little bit. So be aware of that. And if you can't get in right away, just give it some time. You have until Friday at 5 o'clock, so you can just copy that link and do it later tonight or tomorrow. If you really are having problems, email Gabby and let her know so she can help you. And do that. If you do that before 5 o'clock on Friday, then you don't have to go through all the answering the questions of what you learned and things like that, because then she can just get the link to you. But once 5 o'clock comes on Friday, that link no longer works. And so she has to do it a different way. So if you're having problems, please get a hold of her before Friday. Did I get it all, Gabby? I think so. Okay,
yes,
let's get going.
Maybe just make sure everybody is muted. I can hear some noises.
Yes, please make sure you're muted. Oh, and one last thing. Down at the bottom, you are going to see where it says Q&A. Most of you know what this is. It has a little question mark with the box around it. It says Q&A. That is the best place for you guys to put your questions. Jess is going to be answering those questions for the most part at the end. of the training. And so if you've got it in there, that way you won't forget and we can see them ahead of time. If you want to put comments in the chat to each other or resources, things like that, that's great. That's awesome. But just put your questions in that Q&A and that way we can separate those, you know, and get them answered. Okay. Thanks, Julie. You see my earrings? It's Easter. Okay, let's get going. We want to introduce you to Jess Cleeves. This is a perfect example of what happens when people email me and say, hey, I've got a good presenter for you. We love those recommendations, and that's how we got Jess, and we are so excited for this training. I have met with her over Zoom. We've been talking, and this is just, she's been working so hard to get this going, and it's going to be great. So we really appreciate her coming and taking the time to do this. She's coming from Murray, so a little ways away, and so thankful to Zoom that we can do that. And we're going to turn the time over to her so that she can teach us about this amazing subject.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I sure appreciate you, and I sure appreciate everyone who's here. I really respect your time. 2 hours is a lot, and I intend to really honor that. One of the ways that I can do that is by honoring your questions. I am garbage at monitoring the chat. I won't be doing it. That's the only way we're gonna get through something coherent today. So just know that I won't see the chat at all. I've made it so I can't. So go ahead and please, as Kelly said, share resources. Absolutely. I am honored to be in this position to share my experience and expertise, but I don't think that's because I have more of it than anyone here, right? This is in the spirit of collaborative knowledge building and sharing. And I know that the expertise on the line right now is astonishing. And I know you all have your own favorite ways of looking at things or tools. And Kelly has built such a cool community with this space that I certainly don't want to squash that at all. So be in community, share resources. No, I won't see any of it. And if you want a question aimed directly at me or this content, pop it in the Q&A, please. Okay, though we have been Zooming for at least 5 years, my brain still can't keep working while I figure out the share button. So I'm just gonna say filler stuff until I get that slide up. Are y'all seeing that? Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you for your patience. I'm just gonna do a little window arranging. And there we go. Please notice my email. I popped that in there on purpose. It's also in your handouts. That's because I love the conversations that get started when we start talking about this stuff. If you have follow-up questions, if you are excited about consultation, I love a peer consultation group. Truly in the spirit of community, I offer this, and I want to make myself very available to everybody. So please feel free. That'll be there. It'll be at the end, and it'll be in the handouts. Okay. As far as where we're going today, we are first going to explore attachment and relationship values. We're going to do that from a sort of academic frame. We're also going to do it from a personal frame. So this is a long moment of time to sit and chat with each other. 2 hours is a lot. I come from an education background. I know that our attention span is our age plus or minus a couple of minutes. So we're going to be breaking things up every little now and then. There are several breaks. The slide color will change, and I'll have a prompt for you. I really encourage you, if you want to utilize that prompt to really connect this to your experience and your practice, because so much of this work, keeping ourselves clean ethically, is being aware of the world that built us, our relationship values, and knowing how they do or don't enter this space as we're working with clients. Second, we are going to identify common pitfalls that frequently happen in individual therapy when we're trying to support individuals who are struggling in relationships. Y'all, I didn't find these pitfalls in the literature because I made all of these mistakes myself, right? I then, after having made them or experienced them with my own therapists, then went to the literature to figure out, why is this ineffective? Why didn't this work? And what should we be doing instead to make sure that we're keeping things in the ethical realm? Finally, I'll offer several options for general frameworks. We're going to be looking at 5 pitfalls and 5 alternative interventions. And then my very favorite intervention, it's sort of an umbrella intervention to make sure that we are keeping our relationship-oriented work with individuals well within what's supportive for the individual. During this time, please take care of yourself, hop up, stretch, use the restroom, whatever you need. If you would be so kind, please do save questions until the end. Kelly and Gabriella are so generous to support this. I'll say one thing. If I say something that gets your goat, that just makes it so you are too distracted or confused to be able to attend for the rest of the presentation, still use that Q&A, but maybe just pop up the word urgent in front. If you need support before you can move on, gosh, we don't want to move on without you. So feel free to use that indicator, still using the Q&A. Okay. If you can tolerate it, my brain would appreciate if we can save most questions until the end. And then finally, like I said, we're going to have 3 reflection moments spread evenly-ish throughout. And I'm planned for about 2 minutes each for those. Okay. As we norm the space, I just want to let you know, these are the agreements that I'm bringing as I'm, entrusted with your time and the very serious task that is our ongoing professional development. So I trust you. I trust you as clinicians. I trust you as learners and people who are always willing to grow and wonder and stretch. And I offer this truly in the spirit of reciprocity, that I'm really interested in offering something that is enriching and meaningful to you and your practice. I don't know your practice. I trust it, but I don't know it. I know that you are the expert in your context. So if I say something today that doesn't track for you, that's because it doesn't track for you, and that's okay. One of the wild things about ethics is that, ethics and statute are a Venn diagram, but they're not a circle, right? It's not direct register. Ethics are ethics because it's gray. And we need that gray area because I practice in Murray, which is really different than practicing in Morgan, which is really different than practicing in St. George, which is really different than practicing on the reservation. And I'm in private practice, right? I'm honored to be working with some of your agencies who are giving agency time for this. And you have different constraints. So you're the expert, period, full stop. You are the expert in your context. I'm not telling you what to do. Finally, what we know about learning is that the one doing the thing tends to do more learning, the one speaking, gesturing, writing, whatever. Because of the nature of the way we do these talks, I am going to be sort of doing this direct didactic stuff. But we are going to pause because you integrating, especially if you can do some writing, will help you truly integrate this into your practice in a way that's authentic and appropriate for you. Okay. The goal today is that you'll be able to identify and apply ethical principles. As a social worker, I'm going to be using the Social Work Code of Ethics to support clients' individual therapy. There's a typo there. Sorry. It should be an apostrophe, and I shouldn't have said clients twice, who are struggling in relationships. Okay. Throughout, you will see ethical standards at the bottom of the screen. That is because every idea that we're talking about today connects to either an ethical standard. Ethical standards are more adjacent to statute. They're more descriptive. I understand what I'm supposed to be doing with an ethical standard or not doing. Whereas I'm also going to be popping in values and ethical principles. right? So the values and ethical principles are how we frame thinking about our work. The ethical standards are what it looks to be enacting our work. So we'll have both peppered throughout. I will pop into how explicitly I'm addressing them. For example, the same ethical standard may carry through for several slides, so I wouldn't revisit it for every slide. These are also available on your handout. Okay. Okay. I want to also be really transparent about the difference between my experience and my expertise. My experience led me to this work. I specialize in relationship therapy. I see exclusively partnerships. My work tends to work best with partnerships with a hierarchical structure, so where there's at least one primary. And I am happily monogamously married and have been for depends how you count, which is where we come to the story. I am one of those rare individuals, along with Judge Judy and Elizabeth Taylor, who divorced and married the same person. Now, that is not because I was deeply dysregulated. Sadly, there were some things in the background, some family addiction, some fraud, some stuff where having clear separation of assets made a lot of sense and kept us safer. But the fact is, we were also separated during that time. We were separated during that time because we were causing each other incredible pain in the way were approaching trying to be a partnership. That separation lasted for approximately 1.5 years. We learned a lot. We are together, family dynamic stuff resolved. And so I'm proud to say that I am a survivor of crappy attachment idea application in individual therapy towards relationship issue. I have experienced this from the couch side, right? Because of that experience, while I started working with individuals, I have moved entirely to working with relationships because I am obsessed. I love it so much. As a previous community organizer, I've come to understand couples therapy, relationship therapy as the smallest unit of community organizing, and I love it. As a social worker, I can see so clearly the direct impact between this micro meso level work and global structural change. We can get to that a little later on. This expertise part comes with significant training. I am a PACT level 3 therapist. That stands for a psychobiological approach to couples therapy. Skills like Gottman, attachment like EFT, and a different take on some interventions. I'm also trained, I'm level 1 through Ellen Bader's Couples Institute, and that focuses on a developmental model. Right? So PACT is attachment and neurophysiology. The Couples Institute and Pete Pearson and Ellen Bader, their work focuses on differentiation, right? How is partnership an act of growing up, figuring out who we are, advocating in a way that aligns with our values? I am also a student of Martha Kauppi. They have incredible training for assessing and addressing sexual issues in relationship therapy or individual therapy. Can't recommend it enough. But what Martha has done is taken Ellen's stuff and made it very stepwise. So the intervention we're doing at the end today comes from Martha Kauppi's Institute for Relational Intimacy. I'll be giving you all of the resources for how you can find these things as we go. And then finally, I'm also IFS level 2 and have trained in an IFS couples modality called intimacy from the inside out. And that will matter when we talk about how do we blend, merge, work with individual versus partnership interventions. Okay. Okay. I offer this from a stance of the ethical standard 501(c), that we should contribute time and professional expertise to activities that promote respect for the value, integrity, I have a thing covering my screen there, of the social work profession. Okay. And I know that that's why y'all are here too, and you being here matters deeply. So let's go ahead and cruise into our first reflection. I'm going to set a timer for about 2 minutes, and I just want you to go ahead and write out, how do you define attachment? And how have your views on attachment changed over time, if they have, and if they haven't, no worries. We've got about 1 minute left. If you're done, you can also split this into for yourself and for your clients. If you're still writing, please still write. That's great. You connecting to what's important to you is the most important thing. I am going to move towards some definitions, towards keeping us on schedule. The original attachment idea, Bowlby, was these sort of 4 main groups with this matrix, right? Moving from top to bottom, high avoidance, low avoidance in preferred strategy, right? Versus a low to high anxiety internal experience. Like most ideas, things grow and change. There are many things that are really helpful about this first framing. Identifying that the way that we interact might impact the way that we interact was a revolutionary idea and transformative when used correctly to help partners understand each other. Sadly, many of the ways that this language made it into the mainstream accidentally emphasized a deficit framework, right? So secure attachment was the ideal and everything else was lacking, everything else was broken, and everybody needed to move towards secure attachment, right? But it was also this really sticky contrast because we also came to understand from early work that this was fixed and unchanged, right? So one of the things that we want to do is be very current with current understanding about neuroplasticity, that we can shift our attachment experience, and that our attachment experience can shift because it's context dependent. So attachment is a lot more tricky than we initially defined it. And as evidence, a bunch of folks have come in trying to better understand. And, because academia, every time someone thinks they find a new thing, they got to give it a new name so they can get the paper out of it, right? So this is the very hot area to be publishing in. So I was originally trained as a biologist. I was trained as a conservation ecologist. And one of the things we study is taxonomy. Taxonomy is the experience of, are you guys seeing these green streaks on the screen? No? Yes? Oh, I wonder how we do that. Somehow I clicked annotate and I didn't mean to. Let's figure this out really quick. Let's erase that, erase that. I'm so sorry. I'm back with you. And how do we stop annotating? Who knows? Okay. So, as people rightly started studying and wanting to publish, what we started doing with the taxonomy or the classification of attachment styles is we started from this lumping view, right? So in biology, we have lumpers and we have splitters, okay? Lumpers say, oh, these organisms are close enough. Let's put them in the same category. Splitters say, hold on, but they're different because they have a different cell wall. They have a different mating pattern, whatever. I want them to be separate, right? So a lot of the academic talk around how we think about a species is about lumping and splitting. This is kind of what's happening with attachment. Okay, we have some lumping, right? There were some very broad categories in the beginning. Now we're sort of teasing out the categories, though we still have 4 main bins, right? What I'm hoping, one of the things you'll take away from this experience is that we can actually split within our own experience. In this context, I might show up more in this way. In this context, I might show up more in this way. And I feel like my most native expression, the space in which I'm most comfortable, is probably over here, right? So actually to start doing your own sort of taxonomy of self as you work through some of these different definitions, okay? Some of the framing moved from deficit to descriptive over time, which was a lovely shift. Right? So now we're moving into, rather than just naming what's wrong with you or why you aren't secure, now we're actually giving a little bit of color to your experience, right? There might be some parts of your experience that are hard for people to see, hard for people to understand, but once we do, it's much easier to interact with, right? That's a great move. We love that. No harm, no foul, except that we want to be so careful if we're staying in that deficit frame. Okay. This next version, and these are all models. I love a model. I love seeing what other clinicians do with these ideas and which ideas float to the top for them. Because all of this is about what framework are we keeping in mind when we're supporting individual clients? How are we thinking about their work as a part of our treatment plan? We need clarity. So I think it's wild that, a cursory search will give you such different expressions of how people are thinking about attachment, even with the same 2x2 matrix, right? Some models emphasize the experience over cause or how we show up in relationship. Right? So it's more how we are experienced in relationship. You're dating a dismissive avoidant if, right? That is a real bummer. We'll get to why in a second, but first we need to talk about how the deficit idea is pervasive, and we want to be so, so careful with that. Okay? Oversimplifying, missing the lived experience is a real risk. I love this wheel one because it, like the original work, really clearly states that folks who have been diagnosed dismissive avoidant don't experience anxiety. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of my tea. I had the coolest experience, y'all. I got to work for a year with Deb Dana on these cubes that she designed with Stephen Porges of polyvagal fame. It's called the PhysioCam. And I was part of a small test group, and I was the only one working with couples. Everybody else was using it for individuals. So they trained a camera that was trained to interpret biophysiological cues. Or in my case, I used a heart rate variability monitor. That would get a baseline amount of someone's stress. And then from there, during a session, that would transmit to a little glowy cube. You with me? If my stress went increased, or I felt a lived experience of moving away from safety compared to how I started the session, the cube would glow red. If I started the session moving closer to safe, and I move closer to a felt experience of safety, I move into my rest and digest, my ventral vagal nervous system, the cube would glow more green. Y'all, the number of folks who would identify as avoidant, who just got redder and redder and redder, you couldn't tell. Right? One of the things polyvagal teaches us is that the top 5 to 11 cranial nerves control our social vagal nerves. They shut down first under stress, right? Those stoic folks, the ones that look like nothing's wrong, dang, they're good at hiding stress. So we want to be so careful. We want to be so careful with the way we've been taught to hold these things as if they rank, right? As if they are honestly deficits, right? Any tool is a weapon if we hold it right. Any trait is a strength in the right situation. These come from a strengths-based orientation, right? We built our attachment system because it was the best way for us to stay safe given the world that was building us. It is a strengths-based orientation, right? Finally, we have a movement to use attachment almost like we would an inspirational quote or a bit of scripture or a horoscope, right? Where we want to sort of see ourselves in it. We can dismiss where we don't all the way, right? As explanation, right? What I saw frequently in my own practice is that once a couple had discovered attachment ideas, they would use them rather than explanation of like, here's the landscape, here's the problem we're solving. Rather, it would be used to further other each other, to stay in a fixed mindset. This is who you are and how you are, and it won't change. And because of that, we're just going to stay in perpetual dysregulation, perpetual mismanagement of our couple system. Okay. So yes, any ideas about attachment that you feel help you understand your experience, your partner's experience, your client's experience, love it, keep it. As long as we're using it as a first step. And I say first step, understanding that I am asking my clients to believe that they can experience a feeling of secure functioning. Linda Tye's work, check out Linda Tye, she's amazing. Linda Tye's work in somatics, linda-tye.com, has some really cool physiological evidence that we rewire, and we can actually rewire. It takes about 10 years of consistent practice. But we can go from deeply disorganized to feeling secure, not just acting secure, feeling secure. Understanding the dysregulation that comes from relationship stress. I understand this task as medical, as physiological. Stress is such a damaging irritant in the body. Right? We are talking about improving people's lifespans, let alone their children's experience, their community's experience, their ability to participate, right? But the only way we do that is if we believe this can change, right? This comes from some painful experiences where my partner and I were searching for some support, and we saw several counselors who said, "Oh, you're just too different. You're just too this won't work. Everybody's who's securely attached is already hitched. You guys missed out. Good luck. Happy being single." I mean, it was really that blunt and that damning, right? And that fixed from a fixed mindset. And we'll get into fixed mindset more in a little bit. Okay. Okay. I offer even more lumping. Okay. I work in my office from a 3 attachment bin system instead of 4. And it's just about getting down to the most essential qualities and how each accidentally acts in the way that almost guarantees they're going to get the thing they're most afraid of. Right? So if we can take this from a very empowering stance, I hear that you're uncomfortable in your relationship. That sucks for sure. And I'm not blaming the victim here. What you're starting with is not your fault. The great news is you might have some agency that you haven't accessed yet. The tough news is you might have to practice doing things in a way that feels new and uncomfortable. Right? But that's the way we learn and grow. Right? So I just
Do
want
you
to
know
be
if you
really
have any men's swim trunks? No. Okay. Thank you. Oh, had him.
Gabrielle, oh yeah, Gabrielle is on it. Thank you. I don't want you to fear. We haven't lost our very important splitting. Okay. It's still in there. The part that I want you to notice that is the most important part of understanding the difference between these bins is that we can talk about anchors as securely attached. Don't worry, I'm going to define the heck out of these. We can talk about waves as that angry, resistant, anxious, right? I want you to notice this, the designation here that islandy folks, they're covertly anxious. There is more physiological anxiety happening in an avoidant presenting body than an obviously anxious body. Okay? We need that because will help us so much to build compassion, to understand how to come from a strengths-based perspective, and to not dismiss anybody based on diagnosis. Okay. I also feel honored and obligated to offer this. Stan Tatkin is the guy who built PACT. He's the guy who came up with this anchor island wave lumping. And it felt very important to represent this from Stan, so much so that I'm actually going to read it because it's a really important idea and I want to emphasize it. Okay. So many people get stuck, says Stan, with the issue of what am I when it comes to diagnostic classifications. Unfortunately, I have become part of the problem. In my book, Wired for Love, I introduced what I thought was a friendlier attachment terminology: secure, meaning an anchor, avoidant, meaning an island, and angry resistant, meaning a wave. I was never fully happy with the classification system as laid out in the book because it seemed to perpetuate the human need to classify and be classified as either this or that. So let's put this issue to rest and establish the obvious. Most of us do not neatly fit into categories or classifications. In Wired for Love, the book, in Wired for Love terms, think of yourself as being, quote, anchor-ish, or, quote, island-ish, or, quote, wave-ish. And this ishness can be understood to be state-related and temporary, rather than trait-related and permanent. Such as, quote, last night I behaved in a wave-ish manner, unquote, or, quote, you can be islandish sometimes, or, quote, I tend to be more anchorish in relationships than ever before. I hope this clears the question. I don't like that sentence very much. I'm going to edit it, Stan. I hope this clears up the question of, quote, what am I? To which I say, we are all mostly ishy. Right? And y'all, I've had that experience. I've had a relationship in which I appeared islandy and felt islandy as the day is long. And in the depth of our separation, I was acting pretty wavy. Right? So I have a lived experience of, in different settings, expressing differently given different perceived threats. Right? Okay, let's define these, shall we? Let's define an anchor. Stan calls anchors those who have sort of native tendencies towards secure experience behaviors, right? When I'm thinking about a relationship and I have this secure orientation, I will be able to frame relationships accordingly in terms of my experience. I'm okay. What I want and need are okay. It's okay when I'm not okay. When in doubt, I can safely reach for connection. Okay.
Cool.
They also think about their partners in a specific way.
Love you, baby. Have a good day.
Yeah, we love secure attachment. Okay. They also think about their partners in very similar framing. You're okay. What you want and need are okay. It's okay when you're not okay. And when in doubt, you can safely reach for connection. Okay? This is rare. This is a hard thing to come, very few of us come baked in, right? Lots of us need to really reach for this, which is okay. It's reachable, right? But we do need to know what we're reaching for and where we're reaching from. Okay? If I skew islandy, that's that anxious avoidant, and Stan put that in front of there on purpose because remember, we want to understand that all of these experience anxiety, right? It doesn't feel fun for anybody. My strengths exist. Islandy folk have strengths, just like secure folk, just like wavy folk. We all have strengths, right? This is what you want to, I will say this. I have found the most success in my own practice when I have leaned on these strengths and emphasized them rather than a deficit orientation with attachment types, okay? Folks who present islandy tend to prefer autoregulation. I need to be by myself. I need there not to be another nervous system in the room for me to understand what my nervous system feels like, for me to understand why I'm feeling a certain way, why I'm thinking in a certain line of thought, right? I might need that run or that tinker in the garage or that minute painting my nails, listening to music. I might need any of those things actually as an auto-regulatory time. Right? That is truly, if there's another nervous system in the room, my body has been trained to perceive that as so threatening that I detach from mine. All I can attend to is yours, even unconsciously. I don't mean to do it. It's just the way my nervous system was built. Okay? Folks tend to be really creative and focused, and we can go into the original sort of, I'm so sorry, I'm totally word finding the famous experiment. Somebody's got it in the chat. Stranger experiment, right? And we can go back to the physiology of that kiddo, right? The islandy kiddo is also the one whose play became very rote and predictable, right? What a strength, right? So many surgeons, computer programmers, I'm trying to think because in our field, I've seen a lot of really explicit systems work, excellent CBT clinicians, right? There are places where these strengths really matter, right? Problem solvers. They're always looking for problems, always ready to fix them, right? Yeah. And frequently they're performance motivated. All of these things have been bashed, y'all. You've heard it, right? We don't have to bash them. Okay. We don't have to bash them. We can really mush them into seeing them from a strengths-based perspective and utilizing those clinically. Okay. We also want to honor the struggles that I have as an islandy-ish person, right? I am vulnerable. I am vulnerable to engulfment and enmeshment. Engulfment is that experience of, can we do another round of that mute? I just don't want anyone to get in trouble by saying something recorded they didn't mean to. Gabrielle, you did such a great job of that. Just mute everybody and I can turn myself back on. Thank you so much. Or Kelly. Let me know if I'm muted and I'll say stuff again. Okay. Our struggles are that we're vulnerable to engulfment. Engulfment means that if there is an emotion in the room, I feel it. Period. I feel it. Or usually I feel the shame that I connect with having caused it, right? Because in my tiny baby development brain, we do that to keep ourselves safe. Something's wrong with a person who needs to take care of me. I need to take care of them. And crap, I made this problem. That feels a lot safer than this is wildly out of my control and totally unpredictable. If I'm the problem, I have a chance of fixing it. That makes so much sense for a developing brain. It's a real tricksy wicket when we get into adulthood and in relationship, right? Engulfment is different than enmeshment. Enmeshment is that I am okay when you're okay. I can't be okay if you're not okay. Your perception of me defines how okay I am, right? When islandier, I'm more prone to a physiological shutdown, a la Gottman Stonewall. This is not cold shouldering, y'all. It's not on purpose, right? It is a physiological shutdown. I can't outrun it. I'm not going to win in a fight. I'm just going to bring all of my blood into my guts. My senses are going to dull. I'm not going to be able to make words and sentences because I just want to survive this, right? And that shame that was so deeply motivating, that sticks around and it multiplies. Okay. Sadly, partially because of cultural stuff, all of us are prone to a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset comes from Carol Dweck's work in learning that found that students who were told when they did well, you tried really hard, you made really great decisions, were able to build a more resilient growth mindset than students who were told, look how smart you are. Because those students thought that their smartness was a fixed quality. And so they were really scared to take additional risks because what if someone would discover that they aren't actually smart, right? They were taught smartness as an essential quality rather than something we can get better at, right? The fixed mindset pervades the way we talk about attachment and pervades the way we experience our own experience of attachment. So we want to name that very clearly so we can be very explicitly working with it from a growth mindset. This can shift. You can shift. It is worth it to shift. Okay. Okay, let's go back to that framing of how folks define relationship, right? If I'm islandy, my native pre-therapy and all of y'all changing lives experience is I'm okay if everyone else is okay. I don't always know what I want and need, right? You see this when the patriarch takes everybody on vacation and just like stays in the room watching TV because they're so exhausted, but everyone else is having a great time. All I need is for y'all to have a great time. That's all I need, right? Take your windsurfing and shove it, right? Because in order to decide to go windsurfing, I would need to know that I might want to or not, right? If I am avoidant-ish, I have never been invited to explore my own experience with sufficient reward. That has never played out in a good enough way for me. My experience has never mattered enough for me to know how to make it primary, right? Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, right? It's not okay when I look like I'm not okay. As long as no one knows I'm not okay, that's okay. In fact, that's much preferred because usually I'm not okay, right? When in doubt, I can fix it myself, okay? This has implications for relationships. I, as an islandy person, am okay when you're okay. Your wants and needs, though, they do feel like a demand because they are my job, so I don't love them. I love them when they're quiet, and I judge you a little bit for having them because I don't get to have needs. Why do you, right? Therefore, it's not okay when you're not okay. That's where we get that dismissive language, right? When in doubt, your needs matter. They do. And I am here to serve you. That's why your needs feel exhausting to me, because they're my job, right? Okay. How are we doing? Okay. Wavy. Let's define the experience, right? We're lumping, okay? Islandy, essential quality, I process alone. Wavy, all the different flavors, I process in community. I want another nervous system there with me. It feels safer. Even if we're fighting, it feels safer than not having another one there with me. Okay? Strengths of us wavy folk, we prefer extrinsic regulation. This is different than co-regulation, y'all. It's different, okay? Extrinsic is different. I'm counting on something outside of me to help me regulate. Okay? Wavish folk tend to present as very empathetic and generous. They also are creative problem solvers. Empathetic and generous because they were actually rewarded more frequently for tuning in to a caregiver's need, right? Sometimes they actually got what they want from that, as opposed to us islandish folks who never did or who got punished for expressing a need, right? If I'm wavish, I like to learn from and with others, and I'm alignment motivated, right? I care about what you want, and I will want what you want because the thing I want most is just to be with you, right? Strengths of this orientation. Struggles of this orientation. We are vulnerable to the experience of abandonment because we prefer extrinsic regulation when there's another nervous system around. When we don't have that, it can be hard to regulate, right? It feels existential to some at some points, right? Frustratingly, the desire and the skill set rarely line up for those of us who skew wavish. We think we're being clear. Frequently what we're doing, especially if we have an islandish leaning partner, which is frequently how we, spin each other up in this, it can land as a criticism, right? What does that do to our islandy partner's identification with performance? Woo, straight into the shame cave, right? Which means that wavy folks can feel so intensely helpless. I'm trying to advocate for myself. I'm trying to be clear. It's not my fault you can't handle me, but also don't go anywhere because I can't handle you not handling me. Also exhausting, right? Also fixed mindset. I am this way. I need these things, period, full stop. Okay. If we give this orientation, it's sort of relationship taglines, right? The framing is, I'm okay if we're okay. I know what I want and need, but I'm afraid to share it directly. I would rather criticize you after you don't read my mind, right? It's not okay when I'm not okay. I can't tolerate feeling not okay. When in doubt, any connection is better than no connection, right? At the far reaches of this, we see this when we see people breaking up and getting back together a lot. Sending brutally aggressive texts with very sweet follow-ups. It's a wavy orientation, right? Screw you, don't leave me. I'm leaving, why aren't you following me? Right? That's what a wavy presentation can look like, okay? The great news is all of this is changeable, okay? And the even better news is you don't actually need a partner to be on your side to start changing it. Which is why it's so rad that all of y'all are here, especially those of you who are working with individuals. I'm so honored to be on the same care team with you and can't wait for where we're headed. So go ahead and take about 2 minutes to think, right, privately. What relationship values and or expectations were modeled for you growing up? What did you think relationships were, right? Why were they useful? What value did they provide? How did people regard each other in them? And how have your relationship values changed in your own life over time? Again, don't need to share it out. I'm not going to call on anybody. This is really just to connect to your own experience. Go ahead and take about 2 minutes. While you do, I'm going to go get a little more hot water for my tea. Again, if you're still writing, heck yeah, do it. A part of our ethical responsibility is to manage our own countertransference by understanding the world that built us and how that maps to our partners or our clients' experience. Right? So being really explicit, oh, I was taught this about relationships, and now I think this. That can really help us name when a countertransference question is coming into the room. Okay. The next little bit is going to be based on the social work value of the importance of human relationships. Right? The ethical principle undergirding this suite of slides. And this idea of how we think about relationships writ large is that we understand the central importance of human relationships, right? That is at risk because in pop culture, particularly, the current moment overvalues independence and over criticizes or pathologizes what it's named as codependence and enmeshment. Okay, codependence and enmeshment are slightly different. Okay, codependence is I'm going to simultaneously manage you so you don't experience discomfort, but in a way that keeps you undifferentiated, right? Guarantees you're going to let me down, and then I can't live my life when you let me down, right? Codependent means that I can't be okay if you're not okay, but I'm not really doing the things I could do to help you be okay. Right. Enmeshment, a very cool book talking about how to deal with this from a sobriety frame in addiction frameworks. I cannot believe I'm forgetting that one too. Y'all, mid-40s, perimenopause, it's really something. I will think of it the next break and I'll get it to you. I promise. Oh, prodependence. It's called prodependence. And it's a really cool take on how do we love someone who is managing addiction from an attachment frame. Very, very cool book. Okay. Versus enmeshment, we are the same person, right? When you feel bad, I feel bad. If you're doing well, I'm doing well. Yeah. Very different ideas, very different clinical presentations, very different treatments, etc. Right? Okay. We understand that what we're actually going for is interdependence, right? Interdependence is our native state, okay? Interdependence as a social species is requisite. Of course, there are different ends of spectra. Of course, we have different preferences that present in different ways at different times. But in general, we need each other. We need each other in different ways. And one of my favorite things about relationship work is seeing how each partnership constructs their own culture, as is their right and responsibility, right? Because gosh, they can look so different. And it's so cool. It's not my business what it looks like, as long as their nervous systems are registering that their primary person is safe. That is my only job, right? How are we accidentally sending each other threat signals in the way we contract, in the way we conduct ourselves, and in the way that we interact physically, right? And how do we manage those so that we can do the right thing when the right thing's the hardest thing to do according to our nervous system? Okay. That's a whole other talk. Okay. We are going to be talking about relationships in this context, that we are a social species. And we're going to use a squirrel example. Okay. This is a Utah fox squirrel. They are invasive. They took over in about 2011 was when they made the biological books. Invasive means they are just like really kicking butt and taking names and pushing a lot of other squirrel species out. They are aggressive. They're annoyingly charming for how much havoc they're wreaking on ecosystems.
I'm about to take another one.
And gosh, they're cute. So my neighborhood is obsessed with them. We have several neighbors who walk around the block at 5 in the morning so they don't get talked to me about ecology, who feed them. They leave handfuls of peanuts. That we have a thriving population. Okay. And so we've been watching them for about 17, they've been, since 2011, certainly. And they're fun to watch. You get to know the families. You understand their behavior, right? I've got a neighbor, 93-year-old ex-bronc rider. It is his life They've got names. He's got the family tree mapped out, right? And one day we saw a squirrel that was just acting so weird. It was little. It was probably like just out of sort of baby, like just finished nursing, very little. And it would sort of do this hop, tap, tap, thump, thump, tail thing and look around and then do it again and then look for a little food and do it again. And it was so weird that I marked it and was like, oh, shoot, there's rabies. We're going to have to do something about it. Dang it. Like, this is so weird that I couldn't think of any other explanation. Until that afternoon, I saw my neighbor Jim, who in his very adorable cowboy voice said, oh, I just had to throw the mom, dad got run over, which translated means that he saw the mom get hit by a car. It hadn't been that morning, but that's when I saw him, right? So this little baby squirrel had been trying to squirrel by itself. Y'all, I am trained in human development. I have been in this work for 25 years, and it took me until then to understand. We learn how to people from watching other people. We learn how to people from watching other people. And that squirrel would not do well, in a speed dating situation. That squirrel is going to have a really different story about what it means to find another squirrel and make baby squirrels than it would if it had had a little bit different guidance. Okay, this stuff is real. Okay, so we want to focus on interventions here. What can we do about it? Let's say that baby squirrel's all grown up and lands in our office, metaphorically speaking. How do we want to support it? Okay, especially when folks are focusing on relationship behaviors that they've never experienced with their therapist that has a very clear relational structure to it, and the relationship isn't in the room. I want to offer that because I want to give this seriousness. This is heavy. This has gravitas, right? This is a big stinking deal. So it's no wonder it's tough and it's no wonder it's frustrating. Okay. What follows are 5 interventions based on 5 mistakes that I made or I experienced being made at me when I was an individual seeking support for my relationship. Okay. This is practice-based evidence. It is related to evidence-based practices, which I'll cite when appropriate. Okay. Okay. The first, we encounter a challenge that is just the facts of the facts. Relationships are sticky. We will encounter relationship problems. Period, full stop. We will. And that's not a problem. It's the relationship, right? But culturally, we take this in a slightly deficit-oriented way that favors independence, right? These are gorgeous ideas and they're useful later on. But when they are offered too early, they don't teach anybody how to squirrel, right? If I am feeling something because of my partner, but I'm being told no one can make me feel anything, the only conclusion I can make is there's something wrong with me because I'm feeling it. And they're making me. We make each other feel stuff. If someone walked in this room right now and shouted, I would feel fear. And then I would take a breath and I could alter my response. The gap between reaction and response is the only place we can work with this. And that is where we must work with this, right? No one can make you respond in a way that doesn't align with your values based on how you feel. Okay. Now we're working with something, right? The same as we teach people how to treat us. It can skew shamey, it can skew punishy, it can skew othering and managing of the non-present partner in the room, right? What we want to do instead, based on social work value of self-determination, our client is in that room telling us they want to be in this relationship and that it's not working for them and that they'd like to figure out how to get it to, right? That's a self-determined stance. We need to honor it, right? We can validate all parts. We can model what it is to hold multiple truths. You love this person that hurts you. That sucks. What's that like? Right? This is slightly ordered. This tends to come earlier in how we're helping an individual frame their work. We always want to validate that, of course, it is normal and healthy to want to be in a relationship if they want to. If they don't, also normal and healthy, because it turns out that there's as many ways to be a person as there are people, right? It's not our business to tell our clients what to want. It's our job to help them reach what they want, right? So validating can sound like, of course you're in pain. It makes sense that you would want to feel safe and loved, and you don't, right? And then always keeping things laser focused on what we can change when I'm the individual seeking therapy, right? The gift it is when a therapist hands me a developmental assist, like, how would you like our work to support that need? What are we going to do about it instead of just talk about it, right? Instead of just complain about it. Okay. If we do that, we can really support this idea of interdependence, right? And we don't have to sacrifice healthy relationship. Okay. The second challenge that arises when I'm an individual therapist trying to help somebody in their relationship and their relationship isn't in the room, this one is very seductive, and y'all recognize it from addiction literature, right? Triangulation, super stable shape, annoyingly, right? Ooh, that sucker shows up. It just sneaks right in there, just sits on the couch next to you, right? Yeah. If we rewrite this drama triangle, right? The absent partner immediately becomes the persecutor because they can't stand up for themselves, right? The individual comes in with the laundry list of wrongs done against them, why their partner's terrible, right? Taking that victim stance firmly. And here's where we as helping professionals have to really watch it. Here's where I have to really watch it, right? I like helping people. It feels good to be the rescuer. It feels good to watch someone who's experiencing a lack of safety experience safety because of me. Okay. I'm going to make an argument that I stand by here. This is, I think, the most controversial point in our time together today. I think that when we do individual therapy around a relationship, we are oddly at risk for a financial conflict of interest. If I build myself into an individual's life and I unintentionally or sometimes intentionally motivate a massive life change like a divorce, I'm guaranteed a client for another 2 years at least. Divorces are awful. They're going to need some help to get through that. Ooh, I don't think any of us signed up to do that kind of damage, but accidentally that's what we can do when we aren't being really, really careful not to build ourselves in as the rescuer for our client's dynamic. Okay, they are the rescuer, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like, right? To drive it home, when we allow this, it actually denies our client agency. It gives us too much, right? They're not a victim. They may have been victimized, but they don't have to sit in that victim stance. We get to support them to move beyond that. Okay, we get to flip the triangle. We get to know from that growth mindset that our client is a worthy achiever. They can change their experience. They can change their life. They can. We get to hold hope, to use IFS language. We get to be that hope merchant, right? Even when they're not. That's a great way to, send out a life vest, right? Which is really different than holding someone up while we swim. They can experience being rescued, but it is their built capacity that is rescuing them, not us. Right? We're giving them the tools. We got the maps, they're driving. You know all the metaphors, okay? At first, we might need to turn the partner into a worthy challenger. Lots of cool relationship stuff about this. Lots out of a sort of Zen Buddhist frame of like, our partner is our biggest teacher. right? Man, I have some strong reactions when my partner's literally just existing. That's a cool opportunity for some introspection, right? Worthy challenges all the day long. Then I still get to be supportive, but I'm coaching. I'm not building myself into the system, right? I am offering tools. I'm helping practice. I'm saying, ooh, let's critique that form a little bit because I know you can do this, which is different than your partner's a horrible monster. let's stay with the everything is broken, including you, and keep paying me money, right? Okay. What's different between those two slides? Oh, I just switched the ethical standard because I wanted to on there, right? That our primary responsibility is to promote the well-being of our clients. Accidentally, because we profit off of people in pain, we can really screw up when we keep people in pain longer than they need to be. I think this is an under-acknowledged ethical issue in our field. Okay, yes, people need to learn how to feel. No, they don't need to keep telling their trauma story. We know that re-traumatizes. Yes, we need to validate when someone's relationship isn't serving them. No, we can't pretend that that's the only option, right? Okay. We can level up when we start to frame the dynamic as the worthy challenge instead of the partner as the worthy challenger. That's Jedi level. Okay, that's saying, this dynamic between you is really challenging. How do you want to work with the dynamic? You'll need some input from your partner. We can practice in individual therapy, right? It moves towards a more agentic, collaborative approach to a relationship, even when the relationship isn't in the room. Okay, this one's easy. We know this, but we still do it because we're human. That's why we have to be laser focused on preventing ethical boundary violations, right? Okay, ethical standard 1.03a. Social workers should provide services to clients only in the context of a professional relationship, based when appropriate on informed consent. That means we don't get to diagnose people who aren't in the room. I'm going to say that again. We don't get to diagnose people who are not in the room. We don't get to diagnose people who are not in the room. But we don't want to deny our client's experience. Okay, so rather than worrying about a partner diagnosis, y'all, we can be very worried, right? In our heart, in our gut, we can be like, ooh, this is a bad person. Get away from that person. I don't like that you're with that person. Okay, we don't have to offer joining with the demonization of the partner. Okay, we get to focus on that our partner's experience in an action, it had an impact, that impact was real, and we help our clients envision what next. Okay, that is the heart of this work, and it is empowering. Okay, we don't have to deny that the partner or our individual client's lived experience of the partner sounds rough, and we get to move it towards agency. For example, when your partner insulted your idea, you felt diminished. It sounds like your interactions leave you feeling small. How would you rather feel? And y'all, that's not the only question. We're going to get to how we develop that. Okay, it's just showing you the pivot, how we move from their receiving a partner action, feeling an impact. We're going to validate that impact and then help them envision something else for their lives. Then we can help them start to construct it. Right? Okay. Next challenge. Y'all, we only have half the data. I think even less. Because again, there's partner, individual, and the relationship. We might have a third or less of the actual data in the room. We don't see it, right? So very frequently, gosh, I wish I had tapes of some of the stuff I brought to my therapist, right? Because I probably said stuff like, I am so frustrated. I am just being really clear, asking for what I need, and we make these agreements and it just doesn't happen, right? What they didn't know is that at least 1 out of 10 times that looked like, I've told you this 4,000 times. Well, if that delivery isn't in the room, as an individual's therapist, if an individual is self-reporting that they are the angel and that their partner is the devil, that's self-report. That is self-report, right? We also know that state drives story. So when we are threatened, we misattribute cues from our partner. We anticipate threat. We read threat when there's actually not threat. So in a non-secure system, partners are mis-evaluating each other nearly perpetually. Nearly perpetually. They're taking a cue of something their partner is doing protectively and interpreting it as sort of aggressive intended threat. Right? I see this all day long because I get to see the whole system. I get to see that both are trying really hard and both are using strategies that will literally never work with their partner. We don't see that when we just hear the story afterwards, right? So we want to switch to a stance that doesn't see angels or devils, but rather honors the possibility of multiple truths and possibility, right? Really focusing on that individual's experience. It can sound like, what's it like to try so hard and not have anything change? Again, as that intro for some of the interventions we'll get to in a minute. What's so scary about making this boundary? And when I say boundary, I mean really boundary. You've said you're not going to do this about 6 times, and here we are the 7th time, right? What's holding you back? Okay. Okay. We're going to keep moving in terms of time. Okay. So go ahead and check back in with the values you listed about how your relationship experiences have changed. We wrote that earlier today. Okay. Before we prepare for this last challenge, how, based on the world you were built in, how are you likely to experience and process a client's relationship conflict? For example, I was built in a world where transparency, I'm trying to honor confidentiality here, where transparency was not valued, but it was espoused, right? And so I know as a relationship therapist, when there is a lack of transparency in the room about something that is violating a principle of justice, sensitivity, mutuality, or fairness, right? My nervous system picks up on it like I am looking for coins at the beach, right? Okay. And like it is just a giant lump of metal. I have to really work to make sure that that's not my story. I have to make sure that I can investigate if this partnership is experiencing this as a breach of transparency without leaving any fingerprints on it, because it is not my partnership. I get to be in the truth with people, but I don't get to tell people about how they construct their truth, right? So let's say I think they should break up, which is usual, right? When the system's not in the room, when our client's an angel, when we care about them, when we want to rescue them, we usually want to get them away from that monster, right? Which is too bad because I've met very few monsters, right? So this is a real invitation to manage our own countertransference. And it is hard work, y'all. Ooh, it is hard work, right? It's very easy to offer advice, right? What we want to do instead is prioritize first our attendance to our own physiological reactions. How is this story that my client's offering me impacting my story? my script that I came pre-authored with? How am I vulnerable to interpreting this in a way that might not honor client agency, autonomy, need for human relationship? Right? Then, oh my gosh, y'all, you would not believe the number of go-to responses I have to pre-plan ahead of time and literally just practice in the mirror. Because sometimes when you're knocked on your feet, you know, you need that thing to say. So I literally will just practice these like driving to work. I just want them to be able to roll off my tongue when I am dysregulated, right? So it might sound something like, what's the most loving thing you can do for yourself right now? Right? That's never going to go wrong. There's never a wrong time to say that. Nice to have it handy, right? I wish it would help if I gave you advice, but there's no way it would fit you and your life as well as your decision will. Right? And then finally, this is a part of our acting within our competence, right? Which is an ethical demand, right? We shouldn't be working where we're not trained. So if you have worked with a client for years, the relationship is always the central focus. They resist doing individual reflection work. They resist doing some of the strategies we'll get to in a minute. It's okay to refer out. It's okay to say, this really sounds like a relationship problem. I deeply encourage you to explore relationship therapy. We have done what I can do as your individual therapist. Here's how I can continue to support you. And here's where this really isn't the right area. And you're going to get further faster with some support for the whole system. Keep working with them. You know, you can keep working with them. But if they're asking you to be a relationship therapist and you're not, you don't have to be. It's okay. In fact, it's, you know, ethically valid and wise to refer out. Okay, so let's go through those 5 again, then we'll do another reflection, and then we'll go with some like very concrete interventions. What does this look like in situ with someone seated in front of you? Okay? Okay, so instead of judging a human need for relationships, we're gonna go along with that ethical principle that we need relationships and it's okay, right? Instead of diagnosing an absent partner, which violates our code of ethics, rather, we're going to really validate our client's experience and activate their agency, which is literally our mandate, right? Instead of falling into the accidental conflict of interest, where we triangulate with that victim, persecutor, rescuer deal, we're going to support secure functioning. Secure functioning means I can act like I'm securely attached, even if I don't feel it. That's that practicing we need to do for about 10 years, right? I can set a boundary even if I need to go throw up afterwards. Okay, rad. That's the first step, right? And then our nervous system collects some data, realizes we didn't die, and the next time it's going to be a little easier, right? Yeah, I will affirm all of this, simple, not easy, right? And instead of pretending that our client's individual experience is the arbiter of capital T truth, right? We're going to acknowledge that we can approach reality with curiosity and honor multiple truths, right? Their partner might have a different truth. And that is a developmental invitation that invites us to secure functioning. Oh, I might not actually understand their experience. That is actually down-regulating. That actually helps us regulate. When we're in curiosity, it's really hard to also, well, it's physiologically impossible to be in the same part of the brain we are when we're in fight or flight. They're opposite. With one exception, polyvagal-wise, one expression of PTSD is a find in addition to fight, flight, fawn, you know, all the other ones. Find is when, as a trauma response, I'm, you know, perpetually picking up my partner's phone, looking for evidence that they're still cheating on me, right? So we do want to work with that slightly differently, and we want to honor that PTSD in relationship presents differently than attachment pre-baked threat response. Okay, different talk. Okay. And then finally, we never want to offer advice, but y'all already knew that. Instead, we can deeply commit to managing our own countertransference, right? When we're tempted to offer that advice, it's because it's hard for us to tolerate our individual clients' discomfort. We want them to get out of that discomfort, and we think we have the fix, right? Rather, our job is to tolerate our own discomfort with their discomfort, while, of course, we're doing all the other things. We're not just going to let them sit there. Okay. Okay. Let's give our brains a little break again. I'm going to make this one a 3-minute-er. So feel free to restroom, stretch, whatever you need. And I'm going to have you do one more reflection before we go to what the heck we're going to do about this. Okay. Especially if I can make my timer work. Okay. See you in 3 minutes, or stay here and write for 3 minutes. How did you learn to think about differentiation? How do your clients think about differentiation? It's okay if you've never heard the word differentiation before. It's okay that you've heard it in a developmental context. We will define, but we do just want to tap into that neural network. Yeah, take about 1 more minute. I'm gonna get more tea. Okay. Before we move on, I would like to offer a summary idea. This comes from a sort of bastardization of a Buddhist idea that I got from Pema Chodron, which is being an adult is constantly being kicked out of the nest, right? Being an adult is constantly being asked to grow up. We have to keep doing it. We have to keep doing it. Talk about growth mindset, right? So I have found that holding my clients in a developmental frame, that my job is to help them grow up, to help them grow into the adult way they want to manage themselves and their relationships, really keeps me out of pathologizing, right? If it's developmental, it's changeable, right? So we're going to hold that. We'll define differentiation in a minute as one of our developmental goals, but let's talk about what this means for a couple of attachment experiences first. Okay. If I skew wavy, I saw this quote and it just resonated, and then it resonated again. I'll explain. Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. If I am expecting my partner to do it the same as they did last time because I said so, if I'm disappointed that my partner didn't know that I wanted a big birthday party because I didn't tell them, if I am unsatisfied with the way that my partner initiates sex, but I don't share that with them, I am building a plan to resent them, right? So the way I get out of that resentment is through agency. When we think about those of us who skew wavy, right? We heal our attachment wounding by usually if we're wavy, it's pretty easy for us to know what we want, but usually only after we're disappointed. Right? We just like thought our partner would do the thing and then they didn't, and now we know we wanted it, right? So calm identification and articulation ahead of time about wants and boundaries tends to be a pretty good place to work around a growth edge if I skew wavy, right? If I'm going to help a client enact that, I want to help them build a culture of reciprocity so that their requests land for their partner as honoring, as just, sensitive, fair, and mutual, instead of complaints or critiques. Right? Because we know if that complaint or critique lands truly on anyone, but on anyone who's ready to click into shame, they just lost their partner. Right? They lost their partner to shame physiology, which is a whole other talk. Okay. Interestingly, islands actually come to this too. Unspoken expectations for those of us who skew islandy are also premeditated resentments. I've heard this expressed from islandish folks in my office by saying things like, well, I just thought that if I managed all of me and you managed all of you, we would be fine. I don't know, like, I didn't expect you to manage me, right? Or it can, the unspoken resentment can get really amped up when that's reversed, right? I've heard this said in my office. I was just taught that we were supposed to 100% take care of each other. So if I 100% met your needs and you 100% met my needs, then we'd be fine. In a partnership where we're not knowing what our needs are or sharing them, of course we're setting ourselves up for resentment. Of course we are. So if I'm islandy, I need to start by acknowledging that I have wants and needs, right? Sometimes even feeling those is a scary individual therapy growth edge that is a gorgeous use of individual therapy, right? If I'm islandy, that means not only were occasionally my wants and needs ignored, they were ignored frequently to you know, the majority of the time, and sometimes they were punished. Right? I have learned that it's better to just not feel what I feel because then no one can take anything away from me. Okay. In this context, we're talking about helping partners differentiate, with Ellen Bader of the Couples Institute defines as an active process in which partners define themselves to each other. Who are you? Who am I? This is one of the cool ways long-term partnership stays novel. My partner is a universe. I'm constantly discovering who they are, constantly, as they are me. If we're approaching each other with curiosity instead of automation, that keeps things very novel, right? We are always discovering ourselves, and so we are always discovering our partner. Okay. How do we do this in individual therapy? Individual therapy is such a cool place for defining differentiation and building differentiation skills. Okay. The first of those is self-awareness. can you look inside? And this is all Martha Kauppi's language. They run the Institute for Relational Intimacy. Cannot recommend their trainings enough. We'll cite their book in a second also. Okay. This is from a worksheet from the book that I will share with you in a moment. Okay. Martha Kauppi, Institute for Relational Intimacy. Self-awareness. We can help in individual therapy. We can help individual clients build self-awareness. How do we shift that complaint about their partner into the ability to look inside themselves and accurately identify what they feel, think, believe, and prefer, and separate that from what anyone else, including dominant culture, including family stuff, including the therapist, separate that from what anyone else might think, feel, prefer, or want from them. We can see how that could be a lifetime of individual therapy that would be just and ethical and right and good. That is hard work, right? And that's only the first step. Then, if we're going to use individual therapy to support relationship shifts, we also are going to be helping individual clients self-regulate, right? So this has two parts. They need to be able to hold steady or remain grounded and calm, right? So that's a whole skill set. Just remaining grounded and calm is a whole deal. The second piece of this is skillfully stating, skillfully in a way it's likely to be heard by your partner, right? Skillfully stating based on your expertise on them and what hasn't worked in the past, right? Your own thoughts, beliefs, feelings, perceptions, and preferences as clearly, deeply, and fully as possible without guilting, blaming, or shaming your listening partner, and while wholeheartedly listening to your partner as you do the same. There are a lot of skills in there that we can practice in individual therapy. And those skills are essential for a secure functioning relationship. I don't think you can have a secure functioning relationship reliably without those skills. When we have a relationship that we consistently experience as doing those things, that's when we get to start to feel a neurological experience of secure attachment. That's where the growth mindset stuff of this comes in. And then finally, this part is less for individual therapy, but it's an important part to know that you're helping them towards. This is the co-creation part. Okay, so this is the ability to create an atmosphere of safety in your own relationship in which you are both able and accountable for identifying and sharing your truths to be able to co-create a win-win relationship. So of all of these 3 steps to differentiation in relationship, individual therapy plays mightily. There's a role. There's a big role, right? 2 out of those 3, the biggest, beefiest 2, are very appropriate for individual therapy if we're very clear that that's what we're doing. Okay. Another way to talk about this with clients that I love, Ellen Bader at the Couples Institute built these scales so we can sort of assess ourselves. How differentiated are we internally? How much have we defined ourselves to ourselves? Right? That is so very small, and I'm a little worried about time. I'm wondering how best to support us getting that. I'll read a couple of them. I won't read through the whole thing, right? So at the far end, if I'm less differentiated, if I haven't defined myself to myself yet, right? I actually really don't know what I think or feel, right? It may not occur to me that my partner would find it useful to know what I think or feel. I don't share a lot, even if I have connected to what I might share, right? As I'm getting more differentiated, I'm a little curious. Why am I reacting that way? What does that mean? Right? As I build trust in my own self-differentiation, I might all the way to the end of the scale be able to proactively initiate discussions and activities that are healthy for me and my partner. What I want everyone to understand is that self-differentiation is essential for a secure functioning relationship, right? If a secure functioning relationship is I'm okay, you're okay, when in doubt we reach for connection, I'm okay, you're okay. When you're not okay, it's okay. Right? I have to know who I am. And I have to think that's okay when I'm not okay. I have to. Or there's no way my partner can be in that with me. Right? So it's really gorgeous work to do in individual therapy. Super complementary. Can change partnerships deeply. Right? Especially when we also are supporting how this news comes back to the absent partner. Right? Because we either grow together or we grow apart. It's just how it works. Okay. This is in your handouts. It's also available at the Couples Institute. Ellen Bader, Pete Pearson, love them. Okay. Then we're going to acknowledge that differentiation in a relationship is slightly different. Right? Differentiation in a relationship has different skills. We can also work on these in individual therapy. Okay, this can help us get out of that angel devil thing. And I'll read more of these because A, the PDF is worse, and B, this will help you understand what this distinction looks like, right? So all the way at the left side, less differentiated in my relationship, right? You know how Jung said, like, everyone's differentiated until you go home for dinner, right? Everyone's differentiated until we see our partner again. Then it's really hard to know what we think and feel and want and need, right? Yeah, so that's okay. This is also like differentiated-ish. Sometimes we are feeling very differentiated. Sometimes we haven't slept very well and we're hungry and we're overwhelmed and it's harder to feel differentiated, right? Okay, less differentiated. I never think about what my partner is experiencing. What a cool place to work in individual therapy. Not in a dismissive way, of course, right? But in a way of bringing in some curiosity, some cognition to get out of that dysregulation and start building some distress tolerance, right? Number 2, right? If I'm scooting up the scale, I assume I know what they want based on what I want, right? Of course, that's what they want in a relationship. That's what everybody wants, right? Heck no. Heck no, y'all, it is so, my job is so cool. And I get to see into people's relationships. And I'm telling you, we want such different things. We just want such different things. And you never know until A, you know what you want, and B, you can talk about it, and C, your partner can hear it. Right? Number 3, I spend most of my time focused on what I want and what I'm not getting. That is what lands us in individual therapy to complain about our partner. Number 4, I take my partner's grievances personally and react badly. Number 5, I get easily, oh my gosh, y'all, the liberation that has come with when my partner brings me a complaint, it is a gift. It is a gift. I experience gratitude. Thank you so much for telling me that. I know that if I can address this, we will be better off. That is a physiological shift in me. That is a gift we can give our individual clients, right? I get easily distressed by how different my partner is from me. Scooting up to number 6, I get curious about my partner's perspective and ask questions. 7, I manage my reactivity, I manage my reactivity and stay calm and listen to my partner. Number 8, scooting up that more differentiated scale. I ask for a timeout if I need to calm down and continue the discussion once I have. This is another place we can help people learn how to contract safely, even if the partner isn't in the room, right? People enact that badly all the time. That's a whole other talk. Okay. Number 9, I can put myself in my partner's shoes and feel what they are feeling, right? Not enmeshment, empathy. I can actually extend my partner some empathy. Number 10, I notice when I've hurt my partner and repair quickly. Number 11, I take actions that I know will help my partner feel more loved, appreciated, and valued. Because y'all, from a relationship standpoint, a less stressed partner is great for me. That is my best version of this relationship. Supporting my partner means I get more support. There is no true altruism, right? What's good for the system is good for the system. We are co-regulating. our stress. I get to keep your stress low. You get to help me learn how. Number 12, I'm genuinely interested in learning from my partner's experience in order to be a better team player. Doesn't that sound nice? Yeah, yeah. Okay, what this looks like in individual therapy, y'all already have a lot of these skills. If I was a gambling woman, I would guess you do, right? You already know how to do empty chair work. This is a great way to support when a client says, well, I told them that. Have them say it to the chair. See it. See what it really looks like, right? How do you ask for this? Oh, okay, I noticed that your diaphragm's a little locked up. What's that stress about? What are you worried about? How do you think they're going to react, right? You do empty chair work. And you can really ask them to be with their physiological experience, right? Build a little distress tolerance, use a couple different strategies, etc. Okay, parts work. I'm biased, right? I love me some parts work. But parts work can really help people identify that self-definition. What is it that I'm feeling? What is the fear or hurt motivating it? What do I want to do about or because of that? Right? We can desensitize with EMDR or other somatics, right? We can just help the brain assess, am I really under threat? Or was I just trained to expect this threat? And then finally, our personal goal setting. Kelly, I would love to check in because I see that we are about 13 minutes from closing. What's your sense? This feels very important because I want to give everyone a concrete thing. If I spend 5 more minutes on this, will we have time for some essential questions? Is that okay?
I just was looking in the chat. We have about 8 questions in the chat, just so you know.
Okay.
Well, one of them is just asking to see one of the slides again, but
Okay.
so, if you want
Okay.
to finish and then we can hopefully address those.
I will cruise. And y'all, of course, like these materials are yours. Please feel free to, take photos of the slides, whatever you need to get the most out of it. I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit faster through this. It's very straightforward, but it's actually wildly counterintuitive. It's another one of those simple, not easy things, okay? Personal goal setting is a gorgeous intervention for individual therapy, okay? We want to help people understand the difference between a wish and a personal goal. I wish my partner did this is different than when my partner does this, I want to be able to respond in this way. If we are helping clients develop their own personal goals about how they want to respond, how they want to feel, what they want to experience, how they want to build their lives, we know we're staying in ethical orientation. Okay. So the way we do this again is in Martha Kelpie's book. I'll get you the resource in a couple minutes. Okay. We're just going to walk through 2 different humans examples of what this could sound like in individual therapy. How would you like to show up in this relationship that isn't working for you right now? Right? What about your reactivity doesn't align with who you want to be, right? One client might say, I want to respond more calmly when my partner disappoints me. Oh, that would be liberating. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to feel so dysregulated? We're inevitably going to disappoint each other, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful to not feel like that was going to be existential, right? Another client might say, I want to experience more erotic playfulness. Now, you can already see how much individual support we use to get clients from my partner disappoints me all the time and my partner's boring in bed, right? Shifting those complaints to personal goals, right? That is hard work for an individual therapist and it is worth it, right? Okay, if this goes well, what do you want that to mean for your partner or partnership? How do you hope this will impact your partnership? Well, I want my partner to understand how they've disappointed me in the past in a way they can hear and want to change their behavior. Great goal. We can't control them, but we know what we're doing in a relationship system. I really want my partner to be more erotically playful with me. Okay, that's a valid want. I get why you would want that with your partner if sexuality is a part of your relationship, right? Yeah. Here's where the individual work digs in. Why isn't that happening? What is blocking you from how you want to show up? What is blocking you from you initiating more erotic playfulness or a calmer response to your disappointment? A client might say something like, I've tried to share it before, but none of the ways I've tried have worked, so I get dysregulated and I raise my voice, right? Oh, come to think of it, I don't share any of my sexual self with my partner, right? I can understand how knowing what I might want could be tough, right? Individual therapy, we build steps to address each block. Y'all, this is one slide. This could be years, right? Just for context, right? This could be years of individual work to address these blocks, right? This is usually about an individual client's self-defining, right? Internally, I want to appreciate more of the ways my partner doesn't disappoint me. This relationship is important to me. I'm always focusing on the negative. I want to start focusing on the positive so that I can feel more generally regulated. That's a great way to remove some blocks, right? Internally, I will get more curious about what feels erotic and playful in our existing sex life or my fantasy life, or both. I will self-define, right? I will address the blocks myself without even involving my partner yet. Then we get to practice how we're going to communicate with our partner, right? We're going to craft some sort of core messaging, and then we're going to do a lot of empty chair work. We're going to do a lot of work with prosody, tone, regulation, so that it can land, so that they know they've done literally everything they can do to be as approachable as possible, right? I might help a client get to an answer like, on balance, I really appreciate them. I actually do. And I need their help because they are impacting me when they let me down, right? Or they are the person I want to have more playful sex with. Whenever I bring this up, they feel really threatened. And it's not about wanting someone else. I want to build this with them, right? What are you doing or not doing that's making it hard for your partner to give you what you want? This is the crux. This is the growing up, y'all. This is the hardest part because all of us, our attachment primes us to do the opposite, right? Our native reactivity is gonna get us the opposite of what we want, okay? That's where we can really help our clients to practice all of these things about what are we doing that's making it hard for your partner to give you what you want. Okay, we can desensitize. We can learn about parts work. We can really focus on those personal goals to ground. We can do empty chair work to practice, 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 practice. Okay. Woo, you did it. We did it. Resources, Martha Kalpe's polyamory. It's about polyamory kind of, but it's about differentiation. It's a really cool toolkit for differentiation in, your world can be as monogamous as the day is long. It's still a really useful toolkit. Recommend it. Next one, favorite. It Takes One to Tango. Great book for individuals in seeking therapy who want to change their relationships. This is an LMFT who did. Her partner refused to go to therapy. And she wrote a book about how she used these skills to deeply shift her marriage when her partner didn't set foot in a relationship therapy office. Finally, Tell Me No Lies is Ellen Bader's book about growing up in partnership. Okay, to close, individual therapy can ethically address relationship challenges when we honor client autonomy. We help them learn what they want and move towards it. Clients are supported to explore their desires and set realistic goals about their own behavior and the fact that they can't change their partner, but they can influence them. And finally, clients have opportunities to practice interactions and responses that allow them to focus on their role in a relationship. Okay. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. It has been a real pleasure thinking through this with you. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let Kelly pick a first question.
Well, the first thing, somebody had asked if you could put up the secure anchor slide again. But that was a long time ago, so I'm not sure if she's still wanting to look at that.
Yeah, easy.
But while you're doing that, let's see, we do have some, and I apologize, I know a couple of people said that they think that you've already answered their question, but I'm not sure which question it was, so if I'm asking a question that was already answered, pipe up and let me know, but let's see, the first one is, I often see clients individually when it's actually a relationship problem. They often express their own hesitancy to try couples therapy or state that their partner does not want to participate. Any guidance as how to address this?
I love that It Takes One to Tango book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really nice place to start.
I wondered, yeah.
Yeah. And the idea that we can influence and co-create if we understand how what we're doing isn't working can be really empowering. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that, that can be really frustrating. I get it. And there's still ways to move in it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So somebody's wondering if you have any more in-depth trainings or workshops that they are very interested in attending, if you do other things or.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Mostly what I do is in a sort of consultation space. I love facilitating, supporting clinicians. Right now, all my stuff is full, but go to my website. Shoot me an email. And if you're interested in more, I also cited all of my teachers on purpose. Go to any of the training, they're all incredible humans and incredible institutes. And I cannot recommend any, like I got so much out of each of those trainings. So all of them I highly recommend. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was trying to, as you were mentioning books and different things, I was trying to kind of throw some stuff in the chat.
You're
some
amazing.
resources.
Thank you.
I didn't catch all of it, but I was trying. Okay. So we've got one who wants to know how to balance an effort to not diagnose the absent partner while also prioritizing individual client well-being and safety when it really does sound like the individual client is in an abusive situation.
I love that. So we are always concerned about a particular thing. This is, controversial. In Utah, domestic violence is not actually mandatory report, right? We all know that and are a little sick about it. And my experience has shown me that sometimes, 10 years ago, we can have drank too much at a stressful time and put hands on each other. And that's a very different thing than a persistent power differential built on coercive control. So if I'm concerned that an individual is in an abusive relationship, I'm doing the same thing. I am not putting my fingerprints on it, but I am asking very targeted questions, right? Are we isolating? Does this power differential ever change, right? We're being really clear, and then we are showing them the evidence, because we also know that shaming someone out of a domestic violence situation will literally never work. In fact, it will probably, it's statistically more likely to end your relationship with them. Yeah.
Okay, I love the descriptions and breakdowns of strengths, struggles, developmental growth, edges. Instead of this, try this. They're just saying they love all that stuff. Will you help me understand how these need to be adjusted for folks who register on the more disorganized plane, or how this attachment pattern fits into this model of anchor wave island?
Yeah, disorganized is a wavy thing, right? Because if we're disorganized, we desperately want connection and we don't trust it at all. So it's that push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. Same, right? The slight shift I make if someone is claiming their own disorganization is I'm always keeping the word trust in the back of my mind with the word abandonment, right? So I am foregrounding, how do we learn about trust? How do we squirrel about trust, right? They didn't get trust to learn to squirrel about, metaphorically. So in individual therapy, which is a practice attachment bond, how do we really foreground trust? And the fact that trust is the thing that's at risk here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Some clients get stuck in risking change to their relationship patterns due to past trauma. Does your treatment model help diminish such trauma?
Time out just 1 second. I do want to name, we are at 12 o'clock. I'm honored. If any of y'all need to go because you need to go, of course, I'm okay staying on as long as you are, Kelly. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just another minute before I get.
Gabriella, you're amazing. Okay, Kelly, that one again, because it was important.
Me
Um,
too. Yes.
I think I got rid of it. Because as I'm asking.
Trauma from past relationships.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And does the model address that? Yes.
So PACT itself has been, I'm not sure. So, what PACT would say is one of the principles of secure functioning is that I am an expert on my partner, including the threat image they come into the relationship with, right? So let's say my partner has been in the metaphor I always use is you're adopting a puppy, okay? We adopted a puppy that trained us not to high five. In real life, this truly happened, right? We brought this dog home, and the first time we high-fived, sprinted under the bed, wouldn't come out for 3 days.
Oh.
Something about high-fiving was terrifying to this dog. And we didn't know we were that, like, prolific of high-fivers, but we learned very quickly that if we wanted to be in relationship with this dog, high-fiving wasn't going to stay. We wanted the dog more than we wanted to keep high-fiving. Okay? When my partner comes into my relationship having been cheated on and they ask to see my phone, I show them my phone, right? I understand that I get to show them new data that will help correct their trauma physiology. Now, sometimes our trauma history is no match. I can have the most patient, persistent partner who understands trauma physiology, who's there to co-create with me. I don't have to take their threat image personally. And personal reprocessing is still sometimes the only way to shift some of those neurons.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, during your introduction, I thought I heard you say you prefer working with a couple where one person is primary. What do you mean by that?
Great question. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, in relationship configurations, we can practice something called relationship anarchy or a non-hierarchical polyamory, where I, as an individual, can be in multiple relationships and none of them rank higher than the other, which is slightly different than a primary partnership where we are each other's person, but we're opening to other sexual experiences or emotional relationships with other people. So my particular training, my particular skill set works well if there's a primary partnership. We can be monogamous, we can be a different configuration, but we've decided that we want to go through life together, right? Yeah.
And then I love the descriptions and breakdowns of strengths and struggles, developmental growth edges. And see, did we read this one already? Will you help me understand how these need to be adjusted for folks who register on the more disorganized line? We did read that. Somehow I missed getting rid of that.
You're okay.
That's it for the questions. Tons of thanks and gratitude for this presentation. And, I mean, ethics, we all have to have ethics. And I think we all kind of look at it and go, oh, I have to do ethics, and this one was amazing. And that's kind of a challenge for me to try to find people to do ethics and these things that we have to do, but can still bring it alive and still have a twist on it that maybe we haven't really thought about before. And this didn't disappoint.
Well, it truly is an honor.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, it truly was. If you are here and attending, I've just changed my name. My name is my website, jesscleeves.com. Please feel free to connect. I would love to hear from you. Being in community is so important in this work. And I would also love it if you are near a reaction, if we can just give Kelly and Gabriella a little love for Kelly having built this whole institution at this point, and Gabriella for having facilitated so gorgeously. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you all for your kind and curious attention. And it's an honor to be on the same global care team with you.
Very kind of you. We couldn't do it if we didn't have these amazing people that were willing to just volunteer their time, and that's what's amazing is we have a community that is incredible, and we all learn from each other, and you're right, it's an honor to be and network with all of you. So at that, we will let you go. I know people are already hopping off. They've got things going on, but we really appreciate you being here. Make sure that you're getting that link. I know everybody's talking about it already, so you're getting that link. If you're not able to get in right away, just know you have till Friday at 5 to do that, and let us know if you have problems. And hopefully we'll see you next month for another great training. Thanks again, Jess.